This tutorial will show you how to successfully do a tonal study of a cylinder. Hopefully, by the end of this lesson, you would have achieved something like this. Since this is a tonal study, you will be required to think about the highlights as they hit your object closest to the light source, which will be on the top and right hand side, and as the shadows become much darker and more prominent as they recede away further from the light. To help you with this, you will produce a tonal range strip from 5, 4, 3, 2 and 1. 5 being your darkest shadows, 4 being your medium to darks, 3 being your medium tones, 2 being your medium to lights, and 1 being your lightest highlights. Let's get started. The first thing we need to consider when drawing an object such as a cylinder is splitting it in half and doing a straight line up and down your page. That will help you make your object symmetrical on both sides. You then need to do a line at the bottom of your straight line to scale your object. That means this is roughly where the cylinder will begin at the bottom. This drawing activity is asking you to think in a more three-dimensional way. However, every three-dimensional object, which is called a form, starts with a basic shape when we are drawing it. So for example, if a cylinder is a three-dimensional form, a rectangle is its 2D equivalent. After establishing our rectangle, we can now transform it into our three-dimensional round cylinder. The best way to get that done is to start placing ellipses at the top and an ellipse at the bottom of my rectangle to show the roundness of the form. Make sure that both your ellipses are the exact same size. If I were you, I would do a wee practice run on the back of your paper and make sure I'm very confident with the shape and the round corners of my ellipse. Remember, an ellipse is like a smiley face. I'm now happy with my ellipses, so I'm going to go ahead and rub out the guideline that was running up and down my page, which I no longer need. I'm now going to split my cylinder into wee sections. This will help me determine the shading and make sure that I'm doing it accurately. I really do not require a ruler for this next step. You're basically sketching a few faint lines up from the top of your top ellipse to the bottom of your top ellipse. The next step is for you to create your tonal value range. Your number 5 being your darkest, your number 1 being your lightest highlight. Start off with 5 boxes of the same size and start shading them all. After that, cover up number 1 and only shade 2, 3, 4 and 5. After that, cover number 1 and 2 and only shade 3, 4 and 5. And again, cover up number 3, 2 and 1 and only shade 4 and 5. And do that one last time with your box number 4, which will make your number 5 the darkest, most prominent shadow of every one of them. After this little activity, you are now 100% ready to tackle your cylinder. You're going to use the exact same technique, but you're going to work with the light source. As you can see, your light source in this is going to be top right hand side. I know that because I've drawn a little sun symbol. That means that the left hand side of your cylinder is going to be the darkest. That's why I'm going to go ahead and start shading it. I'm using the edge of my pencil and blending motions to create a smooth transition from box to box. As you can see in this photograph, I'm now starting to match my number 5 to my darkest strip, which is the furthest away from the sunshine. As I'm gradually approaching the sunlight, my shadows are getting less and less visible and more gentle, leaning towards highlights such as 2 and 1. However, let's not forget about the top hat part of that drawing. Where the cylinder is also going to be shaded, and as you can see, I've shaded the part that is furthest away from the sunlight, my darker, and the part that is closest to my sunlight I've left completely blank, as that part will receive the most sunlight. Keep using blending motions and keep on blending. Blending is the key word here. Ensuring that we can still see the visible ellipse at the top. I'm now happy with how my shadows 5, 4 and 3 have turned out on my drawing. I'm now going to use a rubber to rub out any spare highlights that I can see. Remember that your number 1 and 2 are the ones that are closest to the sunlight, so you need to show that with your rubber. It is also important to realise that your cylinder will most likely not be floating in empty space. You need to now create a little small shadow on the table that it would potentially be sitting on. That will add another depth and dimension to your drawing. Your shadow is going to be much darker the closer it is to the cylinder, and as it recedes into the distance it's going to get fainter and fainter. My last finishing touch is going to be some reflected light on the very bottom of that shadow number 5 of my cylinder. Reflected light is basically when very strong light bounces off the table and hits the object. I've used my rubber to rub out a few little dots here and there just to reflect that and make my object look even more realistic. Well done, you have now reached and complete the end of this task. You have managed to succeed in achieving your learning intentions and success criteria if you used your tonal range strip from 5 to 1 and if you have used your rubber to rub out your highlights. I hope you've all enjoyed this small drawing tutorial. See you next time.